That's 4 games, 2 draws, 2 defeats, out of the Europa League, I think against pretty ordinary opposition. Listen, you can point to the fact that he's nowhere near getting his team together and he's had injuries and all this, but the bottom line is, if you're going to make a success of it as the Rangers manager, you need to win games. And it really couldn't have been a much more difficult or disappointing start for Derek McInnes. He's going to have to make up some ground here, because you could hear the reaction inside Ibrox at the end of the game. Fans aren't happy. The fans started to turn about halfway through the second half, and I could totally understand why, because you could see it coming. You could see the game getting away from Rangers. You felt that the Polish side were probably going to get a goal, and they did. Derek McInnes changed his lineup, the formation of his team at halftime, having changed to back for the first half, and I actually think it worked really well. I thought it was easily the best 45 minutes that he's had as manager. But then he changed it back. It went back to a back 4 at half time. Ross McCrory came on and played left back, and Rangers, whatever impetus they'd built up in that first half, they lost it, I felt, for 15 minutes at the start of the second half. When they tried to pick it up, all of a sudden they were getting picked off in the counter attack, and you could just feel the whole momentum of the tie going. It was no surprise when it was levelled up at 1-1, and after that, no surprise that Rangers didn't have anything, didn't have the wherewithal to go and get themselves a winning goal to take it into extra time. Really, really flat, and I think Derek McInnes will be really worried. I think he'll be really worried about the standard of the team that he's got. He'll be really worried about probably the decisions that he's making. I think he'll just be perplexed by the whole thing a little bit. Rangers are going to have to clear their heads, and they're going to have to, use an old expression, get their foot in the ball, and metaphorically, and try and start building some sort of momentum. Because right now they're all over the place in terms of the selection, the lineups, the way they're playing. I feel a little bit for Lon Shankland. Obviously, he's bursting to do well. Everything that's happening for him is he scored a penalty to put Rangers 1-up, and you thought at that point Rangers look as if they should be comfortable tonight. I'd predicted that they'd get a 3-1 win, and I thought at that point, yep, that's probably exactly the way this is going to go, and I felt that way all the way up to half time. But Lon Shankland, I don't know if he's snatching at stuff, I don't know if he's trying too hard, but you could feel the fans getting on top of him a little bit as well when play was opening up in front of him, and he was either taking a wrong touch or a heavy touch or not getting the break of the ball. You could start to hear the fans turning, because they're obviously looking at him as, well, you're the captain, you're the difference maker, you get into that situation, we're expecting you to rifle one into the top corner. He scored a penalty in pre-season, he scored a penalty tonight, so he's off the mark. But you kind of get the feeling he just needs one to fly in, and he might get his confidence and he might start to get into rhythm. But that's, it's unfair to pick out Lon Shankland right now, because the same could be said right across that whole team. I thought Yokota looked really good in the first half.
He was really tired O'Keefe in the second.
I thought he looked shattered after about 10 minutes of the second half, Daniel, and he just fell completely out of the game. But he does look like a bag of tricks, and that'll be, if Rangers are trying to pick through the bones of this and find a positive, Yokota is a positive. But, again, I think Derek McInnes would be rightly alarmed by the way that he fell out of the game. You've got to have more energy than that. You can't put on a 45 minutes performance. Gassama on the other side looked bright and lively, particularly in the first half. I thought he was the better of the two wingers in the second half. And then Derek McInnes makes the decision to take off his two centre midfielders in the one go. And that's another big call in the match. I think when you're taking off Nico Raskin, you're taking off a central midfield player who's got a bit of a goal threat. And at that point, Rangers were desperate for a goal. Look, I could go on. There was a moment in the first half when Raskin put in a brilliant cross. Lon Shankland didn't commit towards the ball. He kind of hung off his defender. Raskin seemed to dig him out for not going, because Raskin was pretty pleased with the ball that he put in. It was a good ball. Is there a bit of needle between Nico Raskin and Lon Shanklin because of the armband? I don't know, but I do know from watching that performance and all four of the Rangers' performances so far this season, they've got some serious work to do. They are miles and miles and miles off it now.
As you can probably imagine, Keith, we've got tons and tons of comments coming in, and I'll try and get through as many as I can. Before I get really stuck into them, though, the one thing I wanted to just take up with you as well, Doug says there's no speed in the team, so pedestrian, easy to defend against. See that in the closing stages there, Keith? Rangers didn't even look taking a chance, never mind scoring.
And that I think will be one of the hardest things for Rangers fans to swallow tonight. They've seen European nights, they've seen games when their team's been up against it, they've seen games when they've lost goals and lost a bit of momentum. But what they expect, what they demand at Rangers is that, when you're up against it, you dig deep, you produce something, you get forward, and they as you said, Dan, they looked as if they'd completely run out of steam and run out of ideas. And that's another thing that will really irritate and anger and frustrate the Rangers supporters, because they won't accept that. They expect people to go for as long as that ball's still in play. Rangers look as if they're prepared to accept a bad result, and I think that's probably the worst thing that you could level at a Rangers or a Celtic team for that matter. A team that's prepared to accept going off the park with the wrong result. Rangers have got too many players that seem prepared to do that. Yeah, I really didn't see anybody on there, and as that game was getting away from Rangers, who tried to grab it by the scruff of the neck and do something about changing it. That's a fairly damning thing to say about Rangers side when they're in front of their own supporters up against fairly average opposition in a Europa League qualifier. As I said, he's got a whole lot of work out, that man on the screen.
Aye, absolutely. Let me throw a few of these comments at you, Keith. And look, I'm just a messenger, obviously, for everyone writes in the Hotline Live. It sounds ridiculous to be saying this a handful of games in, but there's already people telling McInnes he needs to go. Let me throw a few.
Daniel, I am not surprised. The Rangers fans are sick to the back teeth of this. And they go into every summer hoping it's going to be different, hoping that a new guy comes in and the whole script changes and it flips on its head and all of a sudden they're competitive. So they've run out of patience. Now, that's got nothing to do with Derek McInnes. It's not his fault that the guys before him, one after the next, has failed to deliver. But it does mean that the Rangers fans start the season with very little credit in the bank in terms of what they're prepared to tolerate. And 4 games without a win, Derek McInnes will know himself. That's going to infuriate the Rangers supporters. He'll know the noise is starting to build. And he'll also know that when the noise does start to build, it's very difficult to turn it down, to dial it down. And guys before him have failed to do that. And there's only one way of doing it, and it's winning games, and winning games consistently. And right now, this Rangers side doesn't look capable of winning consistently, or going on a run of consecutive victories. They just don't look as if they've got the heart for it. And that would be the most concerning thing of all. If you've got a group of players out there and you think, do you care that much? I'm afraid these guys have been letting Rangers down for a long time. There's a lot, obviously, I keep coming back to it. He's brought in 10 new players, or he will do if they can ever get the PSV winger over the line.
He was there tonight as well, he was in the stands.
Well, maybe tomorrow then. But, for me, they need as many changes as they can get before the end of this window, because there's too many players that have failed too many times and simply cannot be trusted.
Look, I know I'm kind of flogging a dead horse here, but let me read out some of the comments because there's so many of them. Andy says, abysmal, and I see nothing that will improve things. Dance Music says, tonight's display was a culmination of years of poor recruitment. McInnes has made a huge mistake going there. It could ruin his reputation. Ali says, every decision Rangers made this season has been a mess. The decision to postpone the home fixture next weekend could easily go to the Old Firm game in September without winning a game. David says, just own up to another mistake board and go out and get Muscat. Ross Dixon says, I like McInnes, but I'm sorry. Phone Stevie G. Paul McQueen, Rangers were aimless at times. Sean says, can Rangers go big again on Conference League money? So, look, you said it yourself here, Keith. This is the rules of the jungle in Glasgow.
Yeah, it is.